Have you been told to keep a neutral spine? When you're lifting or doing accessory work, it can be essential to keep your spine neutral to get the benefits. But how do you do it? And what does it even mean? In this video, we're going to break down how and why we use certain movements to teach spine positioning so that you know that you're getting the most benefits of your exercises without just going through the motions. Then we'll show you how to take these concepts into your training so you know exactly what to look for while you're exercising. Stick around for the end of the video where we're going to cover why you sometimes don't want to train with a neutral spine as well. Everyone's neutral spine will be different. We're all shaped different, so we'll all look slightly different. What we want to look for is your active neutral position. So the position you're going to use if you're using weights or trying to maintain a good posture. So what Jenny's going to do here, first of all, is have a bit of a wiggle. You want to set a camera up so you can see yourself from a side angle, so you can see the angle of your spine. From here, Jenny's going to have a slight tuck of the pelvis. She's going to make sure she feels her abs here. She's going to try and stand up as tall as she can, and she makes sure that she feels nice and solid from all angles. We're not just thinking about crunching down, and we're not just trying to bake tension in one point. We want to feel everything nice and tight all around. From a side angle, you should see that everything is nice and stacked in line. The head, the shoulders, the hips, the knees, and the ankles. From here, if Jenny was to go into more of an anterior tilt, we would have localized tightness at one point of the spine. We don't want to have that. If you try and brace, it's just not going to feel very good. Or there's a posterior tilt where you'd be too tucked, so your spine would be rounded. That wouldn't be very good for loading. You want to wiggle around and find where your own neutral position is that you feel strongest. You feel your lower abs are working and you feel like you can brace really well in that position. And then if you move around a bit and wiggle around a bit, you want to see, boom, can you go straight back into that position again without having to have any kind of second thought about it. If you look at me and Jenny from the side position here, you'll see that we are slightly different as well. So Jenny will have slight more curve than what I will in her neutral position, but I still have a nice bum though. Next, we want to take that active neutral position and apply it to our mobility exercises. So this is the bird dog. It's one of the famous McGill Big Threes, and Jenny's deliberately doing it wrong here. So Jenny, you look absolutely lovely right now. This would make a great Instagram cover photo, but what we want to see is that neutral spine position. So you can see how high her arms and legs are coming here. What you want to actually do, instead of being so focused on where the limbs are going, is that neutral spine position. So if Jenny takes a second to set up and braces here and gets everything in a nice neutral alignment, then we want to slowly start to lift the arm and the leg away and see, can we maintain that as we move the limbs? So now Jenny's hip is fully getting extended here and the arm's getting fully up, but we're not doing it at sacrifice of the lumbar spine here. So you really want to fight to keep that position. It's really good to slow this down to make sure that you're not compensating in any way. So if you can do this with control, that means you've really got a good handle on your active neutral position. Active neutral is great for mobility exercises and posture correction, but if we want to take that one step further to lift weights, we also need to learn how to create tension through the middle. Jenny's going to set up here in a plank position, and the notable things about this is that we want to make sure we feel strong when we're here. We're still looking for that nice aligned position. We're not looking at that posterior tilt that we mentioned earlier or an anterior tilt that we mentioned earlier because they're just not very strong positions. So Jenny's looking to have that same as if she was standing up. We've just plonked her down into a horizontal position. From here, she's going to squeeze her fists, she's going to squeeze her glutes, and she's going to imagine she's pulling her elbows down and tense her abs here. She should feel strong here, and nothing can push her down whatsoever. She's able to hold that position and be strong without someone being able to push her out of that position. This is really important for your planks, so you're not just leaning on the shoulders. If Jenny relaxes the tension there, she's just hanging out on the joints and holding her hips up. It's not the same thing. It doesn't carry over to heavy lifting especially. You can put that into the side plank as well. So Jenny makes sure when she sets up the side plank, she gets as long as she possibly can, and she only lifts her hips up straight enough to a point that her spine is now stacked. So the head should be in line with the sacrum at the bottom as well here. So she shouldn't have the hips too low because then her spine will be curved, or the hips too high, the spine will be curved as well. That tension in the side plank, same thing applies. She presses down hard with the shoulder, drags that elbow towards the hip, and she should feel the obliques here as she does that. And if I try and push her again, she's still strong in that position. She's able to hold herself there and maintain that core tension. Next, let's apply this to the standard barbell deadlift. So what we want to see with that is that there's no spine movement under load. So Jenny sets up in her position, and as she goes through, the back does not change whatsoever. If she was to be going from the bottom and she would get to her knees, and then we would start to see the back start to arch, boom, we don't want that. That wasn't a controlled movement, it wasn't deliberate. So it's a big thing. If we go back to the bird dog from earlier, if Jenny starts from the top, If she was to do an arch back position, that would be her going anterior pelvic tilt, sending her hips back. It's too much extension at the lumbar spine. It's too much localized pressure in one area. So we don't want that. We want to make sure that we're moving through the hip like we were doing with that bird dog. The spine stays in the same position and Jenny moves into the hips. Spine does not change position, and she maintains that tension from the planks. So here in this position, I should be able to punch Jenny all day long, and she would be absolutely fine with that because she's braced tight and she's able to hold that good, strong position as she lifts. Next, if we apply that to the barbell back squat, if Jenny has proper tension again through the middle, she should only be able to squat to a depth that her hips allow her to maintain a neutral spine. If she's braced properly, she won't be able to go fully where she would if she was in a resting squat position. If she tries to cheat and tries to relax down to get lower, you'll see her tail tuck underneath her. This is commonly referred to as the butt wink, and over time, that's a lot of movement on the spine, especially with the weight on top of you. You don't want to be doing that for tons and tons of reps. It can really start to cause issues over time. So make sure you're braced properly and only go to where your neutral spine position can be maintained when you have weight. Lastly, if we look at the barbell strict press and we forget about everything, what we're going to see is a big arch in the back. We're going to be loading the spine at a really bad angle here and turning it into some kind of like inclined bench press. We don't want that. We want to think about everything we worked on. We want to think about that active neutral. We're doing our plank as well, and Jenny maintains all of that as she presses up. So the weight to her is completely irrelevant, or some other kind of animal. She presses, she stays strong the whole time, and her positions look good. This is the way you want the chunk of your training to look all of the time. Your form is immaculate. If you don't do anything about these positions, you will get away with it for a long time and your weights will go up. But after a year or two, these constant micro movements with your spine under load can start to cause issues. If you're bracing correctly, you will achieve your correct ranges, building strength in a more efficient way, rather than trying to wiggle your way into deeper positions. That said, it's a common misconception to think that you need to keep your spine neutral all of the time, which couldn't be further from the truth. Your spine has such an amazing capacity for movement, and yes, while you want to be amazing at creating tension, you also want to be able to bend and twist and move in any direction without freaking out. The main time that neutral spine is significant is whenever you're doing heavy loaded movements in your training or mobility and accessory work to improve your posture. Overall, you want control and confidence with all of your movements. You want to always know what you're doing and why. And if you're not sure, make sure to film yourself and have a wiggle. Correctly, bracing. If you're bracing correctly, you will do stuff and things. You will achieve the correct ranges. If you're bracing correctly, you will... Yes.